Think you know the whole story? Turns out you were probably taught the half-truth. Welcome to Half-Truths. Let's start on a rooftop. No, not just any rooftop. Let's go to the top of the world, or at least what felt like the top of the world when you were a kid. You're on an observation deck. The Empire State Building, the Willis Tower, maybe just the tallest building in your hometown. You're gripping the railing, knuckles white, a mixture of vertigo and awe. The city below isn't a city, it's a map. The cars are ants, the people, you can't even see the people, they're just an idea. And then you feel it in your pocket. A jingle. You pull out some change. A quarter, a dime, and a penny. That little copper-plated bit of zinc. It feels heavy in your hand up here, somehow more significant. And the thought, the classic, mischievous, deeply human thought, flickers across your mind. What would happen if I just let this go? Almost immediately, an adult voice materializes. Your dad, your mom, a teacher. Don't you dare, and then comes the lesson, the one we've all heard. Do you know what happens if you drop a penny from this high? It accelerates faster and faster and faster. By the time it reaches the sidewalk, it's moving like a bullet. You could kill someone. This statement is delivered with the certainty of religious dogma. It's a bit of adult wisdom designed to terrify you into behaving. And it works. This fact is a staple of childhood warnings. It's right up there with don't swim for 30 minutes after eating, and if you cross your eyes, they'll get stuck that way. But this one feels different. It feels scientific. It has the weight of physics behind it. We all learned about gravity in school. Sir Isaac Newton, the apple, $G equals 9.8 text, meter per second caret $2. An object in free fall accelerates. The higher the drop, the faster the impact. Simple, logical, terrifying. The image is indelible. A tourist, minding their own business, gazing up at the architectural marvel, and then, thwack. A 1 in a million shot. A life ended by a single, forgotten scent. It's a perfect, horrifying piece of trivia. It's a modern folktale. It's the don't whistle in the graveyard for the concrete jungle. It's a story about the awesome, indifferent power of gravity and the terrifying, unintended consequences of a simple, careless act. It's a lesson in responsibility, wrapped in a physics problem. But what if that lesson is wrong? What if that entire, visceral, terrifying scenario is a complete fabrication? What if the story we've all been told, the warning passed down from generation to generation, is just a half-truth? Welcome to Half-Truths. I'm your host, and today we are climbing to the observation deck of one of our most persistent and popular physics myths. We're taking that humble penny, holding it out over the edge, and we're going to find out what really happens when you let it go. We are deconstructing the myth of the deadly penny drop. The myth of the killer penny is so compelling because it feels so intuitive, and its power is directly tied to the rise of the skyscraper. Before the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the idea was absurd. Dropping a penny from a 3-story building, you might annoy someone, but then we built towers that scraped the sky. Let's use the classic example, the Empire State Building. Completed in 1931, it stood as the world's tallest building for nearly 40 years. Its observation deck is a staggering 1,250 feet above the pavement of 34th Street. That's a quarter of a mile straight down. Now, let's apply the high school physics we all remember. The primary force is gravity. It pulls an object down, causing it to accelerate at a constant rate, 9.8 meters per second every second. This means that after 1 second, the penny is falling at 9.8 meters per second. After 2 seconds, 19.6 meters per second. After 3, 29.4 meters per second. If we ignore everything else, and that's the key, ignoring everything else, we can calculate its final speed. The formula for an object dropped from rest is that its final velocity squared is equal to 2 times the acceleration of gravity times the height. The height is 1,250 feet, which is about 381 meters. So, $v squared equals 2 times 9.8 times $381. That gives us a $v squared of 7,467. The square root of that is about 86.4 meters per second. How fast is that? It's over 193 miles per hour, or 311 kilometers per hour. Think about that. 193 miles per hour. That's faster than the top speed of many sports cars. It's faster than a world-class baseball pitch. It's the speed of a high-velocity rifle bullet, a small 2.5-gram piece of metal hitting a human skull at 193 miles per hour. When you lay it out like that, the conclusion is obvious. It's not just lethal, it's gruesomely lethal. It would puncture skin, bone, and brain tissue without a second thought. It's a copper-plated projectile. The myth isn't just a story, it's a direct, seemingly logical calculation. This is the story we tell. It's a beautiful, simple equation. Height plus gravity equals deadly bullet. It's a powerful metaphor for hubris. We build these modern towers of Babel, and in doing so, we create a world where even our most insignificant possession, our smallest unit of currency, can be transformed into a weapon by the very height we achieve. It's a cautionary tale for the modern age, and it's built on a foundation of seemingly sound science. It's so potent that it has become a cornerstone of our collective urban folklore. You've heard it in classrooms, read it in trivia books, and seen it played out in pop culture. Think of how many cartoons show a character dropping an anvil and it accelerating to a terrifying whistle before flattening the unlucky coyote below. The penny is just the real-world, bite-sized version of that. It's a story that perfectly exploits our flawed intuition. We see the height. We know about gravity. Our brain connects these two dramatic, simple concepts and skips right over the complex, invisible third wheel, fluid dynamics. We live our lives at ground level, moving at pedestrian speeds. Our daily, lived experience of air resistance is a gentle breeze or the effort of pedaling a bike. It doesn't feel like a powerful braking force. Gravity, on the other hand, feels relentless. Drop a glass, it shatters. Trip, you fall. Gravity is immediate, obvious, and unforgiving. So we build a mental model of the world where gravity is the star player and air resistance is a bench warmer. The killer penny myth is the ultimate expression of this flawed mental model. The math we did, that 193 miles per hour calculation, is what's known as a first-order approximation. It's the first, simplest step in solving a problem. And in many physics problems, it's good enough. But in the real world, the other factors, the ones you ignore to make the math easy, are often the only things that matter. In this story, the thing we ignored isn't just a rounding error. It's the entire plot. We've all been telling a story about a character named Gravity without ever mentioning his arch-nemesis, a powerful, invisible, and deeply underestimated character named Drag. The myth of the killer penny isn't just wrong. It's a story with the main villain edited out. This story is clean, it's elegant, and it's completely wrong. The bad math we just did has a fatal flaw. It's the kind of math you do in a vacuum, literally. Our calculation assumes the penny is falling from the Empire State Building to the streets of Manhattan on the moon. We conveniently ignored the single most important factor in this entire equation, the 50-odd miles of atmosphere pressing down on us. We ignored the air. We tend to think of air as nothing, as empty space, but it's not. It's a substance. It's a fluid, just like water, only much less dense, and like any fluid, it resists objects moving through it. This resistance is a force. You felt it. Stick your hand out the window of a moving car. At 10 miles per hour, you feel a gentle push. At 60 miles per hour, the air feels like a solid wall trying to rip your arm off. This force is called air resistance or drag. Drag is the great antagonist in the story of the deadly penny, and it's a very effective antagonist. As the penny starts to fall, gravity pulls it down. It accelerates, but as its speed increases, the force of drag pushing up against it also increases. And it increases dramatically, not linearly, but with the square of the velocity. Double the speed and you get 4 times the drag. So we have a battle of forces. Gravity is a constant, steady pull. $G$ is $G$. It never changes, but drag is a reactive force. It starts at 0 and gets stronger and stronger the faster the penny falls. It's a force that's obsessed with 2 things, speed and shape. We talked about speed. The faster you go, the more it pushes. But let's talk about shape. Imagine dropping 2 objects of the exact same weight. One is a tiny, dense, perfectly streamlined steel dart. The other is a big, fluffy parachute made of paper. Which one hits the ground first? The dart, obviously. Why? Because its shape cuts through the air. It presents a tiny surface area to the oncoming wind of its own fall. The paper parachute, by contrast, is all surface area. It's designed to catch the air, to maximize drag. A bullet is a steel dart. It is designed with centuries of engineering behind it to be ballistically efficient. It has a pointed tip, a heavy mass concentrated in a small area, and a shape that minimizes air resistance, allowing it to maintain its velocity for as long as possible. A penny is a paper parachute. It is perhaps one of the most ballistically inefficient objects you could possibly design. It's a coin. It's meant to be flat, to stack, to be easily handled. In the context of aerodynamics, it's a disaster. Why would we design things to be inefficient? We do it all the time. A parachute, a spoiler on a race car. We intentionally use drag to slow things down. A penny is an accidental parachute. Its primary purpose, being a unit of currency, just happens to give it a shape that is brilliant at slowing itself down. It is, in effect, its own safety device. When you drop it, it doesn't fall in a perfect, stable edge and line. It flutters, it tumbles, it spins. Like a leaf, this tumbling motion is crucial because it exposes the penny's maximum flat surface area to the oncoming air, which maximizes the drag. It's as if the penny is actively trying to slow itself down, presenting its full, flat face to the wind, saying, "No, thank you, I'm not in a hurry." So you have an object with very low mass, meaning gravity's pull is weak, and a very high drag shape, meaning air resistance builds up fast. A penny weighs only 2.5 grams if it's a modern, mostly zinc penny, or about 3.1 grams if it's an older copper one. What happens when you have a constant downward force and an ever-increasing upward force? Eventually, they meet. There is a magic moment, a specific speed where the upward push of air resistance becomes exactly equal to the downward pull of gravity. At this precise moment, the forces are balanced. The net force on the penny becomes 0. And according to Newton's first law, an object with 0 net force acting on it stops accelerating. It doesn't stop falling, but it stops getting faster. This speed, this physical speed limit imposed on a falling object by the atmosphere itself, has a name. It's called terminal velocity. Every object has one. A skydiver in a belly-to-earth position has a terminal velocity of about 120 miles per hour. A bowling ball, which is heavy and dense, might reach 200 miles per hour. A feather, maybe 1 or 2 miles per hour. So the real question isn't, how fast is the penny going when it hits the ground? The real question is, what is a penny's terminal velocity? And just as importantly, how long does it take to reach it? This is where the myth truly falls apart. A penny reaches its terminal velocity incredibly quickly. It doesn't need 1,250 feet. It doesn't even need 100 feet. Scientists and researchers, from university physics departments to the hosts of Mythbusters, have calculated and tested this extensively. A penny reaches its terminal velocity after falling for only about 50 to 60 feet. That's it. After falling just 5 or 6 stories, the penny is at its maximum speed. Just to put that in perspective, the Empire State Building is 102 stories tall. The penny is at its maximum speed by the time it passes the 97th or 96th floor. For the remaining 1,200 feet of its fall, for the vast majority of its journey, it is in a state of equilibrium. It's not a bullet-gathering speed. It's a leaf coasting at a fixed and surprisingly low velocity. The origin of the myth, then, becomes clear. It's what we call folk physics. It's a thought experiment that was passed around so many times it was mistaken for a real experiment. It probably started in the 1930s, right as buildings like the Empire State and the Chrysler Building were capturing the public imagination. People would look up, do the simple vacuum math in their heads, and gasp. The story was just too good, too neat, too perfectly illustrative of this new vertical world to bother checking. And here's another piece of evidence: the sound of silence. The Empire State Building has been open since 1931. Over 100 million people have visited its observation decks. Do we really believe that in all those decades, not one single person, a rebellious teenager, a curious child, a drunk tourist, has ever let a penny slip through their fingers? Of course they have. It has happened thousands, probably tens of thousands of times. And where are the news reports? Where are the obituaries, Manhattan Man, mysteriously slain by single cent? They don't exist. There has never, not once, been a recorded, verified case of a pedestrian being killed or even seriously injured by a coin dropped from a building. The lack of evidence, in this case, is the most powerful evidence of all. If the premise is X causes Y, and we see millions of instances of X not causing Y, we have to start questioning the premise. The myth persists, not because it happens, but precisely because it doesn't. It lives in that safe, hypothetical space of what if, where it never has to face the inconvenient reality of a 30 miles per hour impact. It's a classic half-truth. It starts with a real scientific principle. Gravity makes things accelerate, but it omits the other half of the story. It omits the air. And in doing so, it creates a boogeyman out of a non-problem while distracting us from the real physics, which is frankly far more interesting. So, we've established that the penny stops accelerating after about 50 feet, and for the rest of its long journey down, it's just coasting at its maximum speed. What is that speed? The myth gave us a terrifying 193 miles per hour. The reality? Calculations and experiments show a penny's terminal velocity is somewhere between 30 and 50 miles per hour. Let's split the difference and call it 40 miles per hour, or about 64 kilometers per hour. This is not fast. In the grand scheme of projectiles, it's positively sluggish. It's the speed of a car in a school zone. It's a speed you can legally achieve on a bicycle. It is absolutely, unequivocally not the speed of a bullet. Let's really dig into this comparison. The myth's 193 miles per hour is in the realm of a high-velocity .22 rimfire bullet. The reality's 40 miles per hour is in the realm of a really angry bee. Let's go back to that crucial concept of energy. The damage an object can do is all about its kinetic energy. That's its mass times the square of its velocity. The myth, with its 193 miles per hour velocity, gave us a huge, scary number. The reality, with a 40 miles per hour velocity, gives us something vastly different. Remember, the velocity is squared, so a 40 miles per hour impact isn't just 4.8 times weaker than a 193 miles per hour impact. It's $4.80 times $4.80 times weaker. It's over 23 times less powerful. The kinetic energy of a penny at 40 miles per hour is about 0.4 joules. That's a tiny, tiny amount of energy. A 9mm bullet, a common handgun round, leaves the barrel with about 1,500 joules of energy. A fastball thrown by a professional baseball player carries about 110 joules. Our deadly penny, the one we were all warned about, carries less than 1 joule. It's not just not a bullet, it's in a different phylum of physical interaction. To be lethal, a projectile generally needs to do one of two things: either have massive blunt force trauma, like a bowling ball, even at 40 miles per hour, or it needs to penetrate. A penny can't do blunt force trauma. It's 2.5 grams. It just doesn't have the oomph. So could it penetrate? Could it act like a tiny round blade? So, what would happen if you were that unlucky tourist on the sidewalk and this tumbling 40 miles per hour penny struck you on the head? It would sting a lot. It would be a sharp, surprising, and very unpleasant thwack. It would absolutely ruin your day. It might raise a welt. It might even be sharp enough to break the skin and cause a tiny cut. But kill you? Not a chance. It does not have the mass or the velocity to transfer enough energy to fracture a human skull. Your skin is elastic. Your skull is an evolutionary marvel, a curved, multi-layered piece of bone designed specifically to absorb and redirect impacts. To fracture a human skull, you need a force of thousands of newtons. A penny at 40 miles per hour delivers a tiny, tiny fraction of that. Think of it this way. Getting hit by this penny is like getting flicked really hard on the head. Annoying? Yes. Infuriating? Probably. Lethal? Absolutely not. The Mythbusters team, in their classic experiment, fired a penny at 50 miles per hour into a block of ballistic gelatin, which simulates human tissue. It didn't penetrate at all. It just bounced off, leaving a small dimple. But they didn't stop there. They are, after all, Mythbusters. They asked the next logical question. Okay, so dropping it won't work. But could a penny ever be lethal? To find out, they had to build a custom-designed penny rifle. They had to force the penny to go fast enough to be dangerous. They discovered that to get a penny to actually penetrate the ballistic gel, to get it to a speed where it might be lethal, they had to fire it at over 2,000 miles per hour, Mach 3, a speed far, far beyond what any bullet achieves. And even then, to make it work, they had to fire it perfectly edging like a buzzsaw. A tumbling 40 miles per hour penny isn't just not lethal. It is 1,960 miles per hour short of maybe being lethal. And that's before we even reintroduce the wind. The urban canyon effect in a city like New York or Chicago creates incredibly complex wind patterns. Downdrafts, updrafts, crosswinds. A 2.5-gram flat object is completely at the mercy of these winds. An updraft, which is common along the face of a skyscraper, could easily slow the penny down even below its terminal velocity, or just hold it in the air, or, most likely, blow it hundreds of feet away from the building. The penny is a tumbleweed in a hurricane. The chances of a penny dropped from the Empire State Building even hitting a person on the sidewalk below are astronomically small. And the chances of that impact being anything more than a confusing, painful, ouch are zero. The real story is this: the penny is innocent. It's been framed by our own faulty intuition. The real hero of the story, the invisible guardian angel on the streets of Manhattan, is air resistance. It's the force we forget, the one that puts a speed limit on everything, the one that turns a potential bullet into a harmless fleck of metal. Now, this doesn't mean nothing dropped from a skyscraper is dangerous. The myth is wrong about the penny, but the instinct behind it isn't entirely crazy. The danger isn't the penny, it's the shape and the mass. What if, instead of a penny, you dropped a ballpoint pen? A pen is far more aerodynamic. It's designed to be a dart rather than a leaf. It would tumble less, fall straighter, and achieve a much higher terminal velocity. Some estimates put a falling pen at close to 200 miles per hour. That could do real damage. What if you dropped a roll of quarters? Now you have both aerodynamics, a solid cylinder, and mass. A roll of quarters weighs 113 grams, over 45 times more than a penny. That object, falling at a high terminal velocity, would be unequivocally lethal. This is why construction sites have rules about hard hats and securing tools. It's not the pennies they're worried about. It's the bolts, the wrenches, the hammers. Objects with significant mass that can, and do, kill people. The half-truth we've unraveled today is a fascinating one because it's so almost right. It correctly identifies a force, gravity, and a setting, great height, that can create danger. But it picks the wrong protagonist. It blames the penny, the lightweight, high-drag object, when it should have been looking at the hammer, the dense, heavy, and truly dangerous projectile. So, we've traveled from the dizzying heights of the Empire State Building to the pavement below. We started with a myth that felt like ironclad fact, a penny transformed by gravity into a tiny copper bullet, a 193-mile-per-hour projectile. It was a simple, terrifying story of physics. And then we pulled the thread. We introduced the one character the myth always forgets, the air. We discovered that this invisible, seemingly empty fluid is actually a powerful brake. We learned about terminal velocity, the physical speed limit imposed on all falling objects. We watched our penny's lethal 193 miles per hour plunge get slashed down to a far less impressive 30 to 50 miles per hour. We learned that it reaches this top speed after just a few stories, coasting the rest of the way down. We saw its kinetic energy, the very thing that would make it dangerous, plummet from bullet to bug. The real story, the one backed by science, is that a falling penny is a nuisance, not a nightmare. It might sting, it might even cut you, but it cannot kill you. It's a physical impossibility. Why did we spend all this time dissecting a piece of urban folklore? Because the story of the killer penny is a perfect example of how our intuition can fail us. We are wired to see simple, linear causes and dramatic effects. Height plus gravity equals danger. It makes sense. But the real world is almost never that simple. It's messy. It's full of opposing forces, hidden variables, and complex systems. In this case, the invisible force of air resistance is more powerful than the obvious force of gravity. Unlearning this half-truth isn't just about pennies. It's about learning to question the facts that feel just a little too neat, a little too perfectly dramatic. It's a reminder that the simple, scary story is rarely the whole story. The truth is often more complex, more nuanced, and, in this case, a whole lot less terrifying. The world is full of invisible forces that shape our reality, and the most powerful of them isn't gravity. It's the air that slows the penny down, and the truth that eventually slows the myth down, too. Now you know the real story. What other half-truths are still out there? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, and join us next time. Until then, stay curious.